Hey guys, it's Alyssa, the hopeless romantic redhead.
And I'm Danielle, the whodunit detective.
And welcome to Main Character Syndrome. If you feel like you are the main character in your life, you are in the right place. We are continuing our deep dive into Heir of Fire, which is book 3 of the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J Maas. And a lot has been happening in this book. It's very informational and we get a lot of plot twists. So we did chapter 1 to 22 in part 1. So if you have not read up to chapter 23 of Heir of Fire, go back, reread or read the chapters or listen to our podcast and come back here.
Yeah, a lot's happening, and I've heard a lot of people come back to this book again. It's a book that I think a lot of people have reread multiple times, is what I've heard. So I'm expecting to do that again in the future, but I can understand why, because there's a lot of information being thrown at us. And today we're going to do chapter 23 to chapter 46, and then we'll finish off the book in our next episode. But we're finally starting, I would say now. I mean, we've had some action in, we'll say, the first part of the book, and
Mm-hmm.
now jumping into kind of this second third of the book. I feel like a
Yeah, the
lot
book
more.
is in two parts, but we decided to do it in three because the first two parts are really, really long.
Yes. Yes. So kind of this second out of three, a lot starting to happen. And I feel like learning a lot in these chapters. And
Mhm.
which I think that's why it's also important that we've kind of broken it down again into three different episodes that we'll be doing. So let's jump into chapter 23. And it begins with Manon's point of view. And it's match day, basically. They are matching with the Wyvern. And Manon, she wants the big bad Titus. And the Wyvern are being paraded in front of them, basically, almost it seems. They're being shown and then selected. And in this kind of parade, I'm calling it, they show their skills by attacking what they call a bait beast. It's another wyvern, basically, that's chained up, and he's just been beaten over and over again. And he's never been trained like these other wyvern. So Astern goes unchallenged first for her wyvern. Petra asks Manon if she is waiting for Titus, and she says that she'd rather have it than Iskra. Iskra. Petra says that to Manon. And so then finally Titus comes out, and Titus is, if you remember, he's a savage, and he's just a real a-hole basically. And Iskra then pushes Manon into the pit where Titus is. She's like, "You want him? Go get him." And this is a really dangerous situation for Manon. And as this happens, Astern, who's supposed to be protecting Manon, tackles Iskra and they start fighting. Meanwhile, her grandmother, Manon's, orders no one to jump into the pit after her. And then Manon draws a blade and she wants to get out of there. She wants to go run to the gate. And then Titus starts lunging at her, ready to attack, and strikes her with his tail. The bait beast is kind of there in the way, and Manon looks over at him and she realizes that he kind of seems to have some emotion. So he's not just like some emotionless creature right there. And he seems to want to use her as an ally to take down Titus. And then Manon runs, she uses her sword in her hand, she cuts the bait beast free, and then together they attack Titus. Manon ends up getting out, and then starts to feel sympathy for the bait beast who's going one on one with Titus. She goes back in and then ends up cutting Titus's tail off, and the bait beast kills Titus. Now, this is kind of a lengthy chapter, and this is like a lot of crazy information. But then Manon stays in the pit, and people are telling her to run now, basically, from this bait beast who she's let go. And she stays, she holds out her hand to the bait beast, and she says, "He's mine." And then they bond, and the beast does not hurt her. And she names him Abraxas. And then Manon stares down Iskra and says, "It looks like I lost my footing." And she doesn't kind of admit that Iskra got her and threw her in the pit. And then Astrid is punished by Mother Blackbeak for letting Manon fall into the pit and is whipped by the Yellowlegs heir publicly. Her grandmother is pissed that she chose this bait beast who seems inferior to all of the other wyvern, thinks it's embarrassing. Her grandmother's a real piece of work. And then he's also never flown before. So, like I mentioned, he's not been trained with the others. So, he's never flown. He's small. And the guards say that he can't even train with the rest of them because they believe they'll immediately attack this bait beast and that he needs to be trained solo. And she tries to refuse. But eventually she's like, yeah, okay. So, that was a lot.
Yeah. So some similarities to threshing, but definitely different.
For sure.
If you guys don't know Fourth Wing, that threshing was a term in the books. But we're seeing a lot of similarities because we have the term wyvern, we've got wing leader, war games, those are all coming up, but they're all different
Yeah. In their ways.
in their ways. And again, a lot of authors get inspiration from others. It's just a difference between infringement and inspiration.
Yeah.
But I think this is really interesting information too, because you have this big bad, which is Titus, getting beaten by this shrimp, as you would say in the dragon
Mhm.
world. Like he's tiny, he's weak, he's puny. He couldn't win a battle.
Yeah.
And then he kills the big bad.
Yeah. It's kind of like I feel like things are starting to change for Manon as well. So like she's realizing she's like, yeah, wait, okay, I was going after the big bad one, but this guy, he's scrappy. He's
Hmm.
scrappy and she kind of starts to have some emotion and I think she starts to actually feel bad for him. And so, I mean, we don't know too much about Manon aside from the fact that she is kind of she's technically bad, she's evil, and she wants bad things. So it's just interesting to see her have a little bit of almost sympathy.
Yeah, she's supposed to be ruthless, like the Blackbeak clan, like her grandmother. And she is starting to show some compassion for some of these, especially this animal.
Yeah.
And she's also learning that maybe these beasts actually do feel feelings and
Hmm.
actually do have emotions and can hear them when
Yeah.
they insult them.
Yeah.
So definitely some things. And I love Abraxos. Like he reminds me of, I don't know if you've seen How to Train Your Dragon.
I haven't.
He reminds me of that. He reminds me of Toothless. He's
Yeah.
adorable.
I
Okay.
get some Andarna vibes a little bit from him.
Yeah, he's a little spicy.
Yeah.
All right, chapter 24. So if you remember when we left off in part one, Kaol had just found out that Adian is basically he is against the king. He has been working for the king. He's been working with the rebels this entire time. He's been wearing a fake black ring and he wants to take down the king with Aelin and her army and Al. And now Adian also found out that Aelin is alive. So
Hmm.
these two are working together to kind of figure out what is going on in the kingdom of Rifthold. So we go chapter 24. Kaol takes Adian down to Elena's tomb under the castle, and he tells Adian what he knows about Selena slash Aelin. What they don't know is that Dorian overhears them the entire time, and from his point of view, he feels betrayed. Neither Kaol nor Selena told him about Selena's true identity. So Dorian confronts both of them, but then says he will keep quiet and he doesn't want any part in their secrets. Later, Adian meets with Ren and his dad Murtaugh, and they plan to recruit the remaining members of Aelin's court to their cause.
I feel like this chapter happened like so fast. Like I feel like this was like something that really big that happened, but it was given a really short chapter and just like breezed over.
Yeah, it was a very short chapter, and it's interesting to see from Dorian's point of view how betrayed he felt.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of detail in other things, and I guess, it's not that important, but I don't know. As like a reader and like someone who like felt the relationship between Kael and Dorian, felt the relationship between Dorian and Selena, and like you could tell how strong it was. It was just like a quick, oh yeah, hey, by the way, this girl that you thought you loved is not the girl that you thought she was.
Yeah.
So,
And then once he started hanging out with Adian, he's like, we hate him, but you suddenly like him now? Like you're friends? Like what the hell?
yeah, yeah, a little sus, but
Twist that knife even more.
and so, I mean, these chapters jump around from so many different point of views. So then
Mhm.
in chapter 5, we're jumping back to Selena slash Aylin's. And then Aylin is at the sun goddess temple training. We learn the sun goddess Mala was sister to Deanna, keeper of the moon. And she sees a carving of what is a sun stag. And if you remember, I believe it's the white stag is the symbol of Terrasen. So this is what a sun stag symbol. Her and Roland start talking about how the Fae and her land were gentler than the ones there. And they weren't trained in combat. So that's how the king ended up beating them in Terrasen back in the day. And so we learned that Maeve wouldn't send help back when the king invaded Terrasen. And then we jump back to the building, and people keep looking at her kind of strangely. This was just kind of a funny thing noted. And Roland's like, yeah, people are looking at you weird because of this scent you put off. Like, you're putting off a real bad scent, girlfriend. And her and Roland are then continuing to walk, and they find a body while walking by water. And she says that she thinks she was killed, that the body was killed by the thing that approached her in the cemetery, because she can recognize the smell. And she says that the smell was similar to that in her parents' bedroom, which is interesting.
Which I assume is like death.
Yeah, like death, but yeah, this kind of like dark magic is what I'm, assuming.
Yeah, if
This
you guys
otherworldly
remember
magic.
in the first part of this, she was trying to defeat the Barrel Whites, and then this darker creature comes and like scares her to death. Like she pees her pants, she throws up. This is this creature that she thinks is what killed this person. So she's like, great. This
Yeah,
is what we're tracking right now.
yeah. But it also makes me wonder if that's who killed her parents, but I don't know.
Yeah,
No, because they
that's
weren't husks, but we'll see.
we'll see. Something to keep in mind. Okay, chapter 26. Because Dorian caught them and their secrets aren't really well kept around the castle, they, Adian and Kael start meeting in Selena's abandoned secret apartment to avoid being caught. Adian talks about the day magic disappeared 10 years earlier, and he tells Kael that 3 different waves of power swept the land before magic was gone. This is interesting to note because this will come up later, so pay attention to that. Then we go to Dorian's point of view. Dorian and Sorsha are testing out the effects of iron to subdue the prince's power. Because remember, iron kind of counteracts magic. So this iron smoothie drink does prove to be effective. And then Dorian is super, super happy. And then he kisses Sorsha. Like I said, Sorsha, unfortunately, is the rebound for Aelin.
Yeah. Oof.
Poor Sorsha. Like, this girl has been in love with this prince for years. And this
Yeah.
dude's just like, you're the first girl I've seen after Aelin. I'll take you.
Yeah, he seems to really like her though, but
I know, but this poor boy, like, he wears his heart on his sleeve and he's attracted to a lot of things.
I know for someone who's like was introduced to us as a player, he's definitely not been a player ever since we met him.
Also true.
So that's just funny.
He
Chapter
does like
20,
girls, though.
yeah. Chapter 27, we're back to Manon's point of view. Manon makes Astrid choose between either following her grandmother's orders and keeping Manon in her sight, or letting her go off and letting Manon go off and train with her wyvern by herself. Astrid says that she serves her, as in Manon, which is interesting. Manon privately trains with Abraxos. We learn that he's really obedient to her and understands her. He's obedient to her right now. I'll say that. And then she hasn't gotten him to fly yet in this chapter.
Yeah, you'll learn throughout this series that the 13 is very loyal to each other and Manon.
Hmm.
They kind of go by their own rules at this point.
I like that. Honestly, I know they're like the bad, like they're gonna become the bad guys maybe, but they're kind of badass. I'm like, yeah, I like you guys.
Yep, they're great. All right, chapter 28. Also kind of another short chapter. So Selena continues to shift on Q by using her anger as a trigger. They continue investigating the mysterious deaths in the surrounding towns. Selena then starts recalling memories from her childhood. Her parents' conversation about Maeve's desire to get her hands on Aelin and use her fire abilities to her own gain. This is super important. So
Oh,
remember that one.
oh, shoot. Okay.
It's not a spoiler, but I mean, Maeve is sus.
No, Maeve sucks.
Yeah.
She sucks.
She's super suspicious. Like nobody I don't trust her.
Yeah, me either. Chapter 29, Sorsha then ends up kissing Dorian on her own terms now. She like tries to fight it and she's like, it's a bad idea, like in her head. And she's like, I can lose my job. But then she ends up kissing him now. Um, I still am really sus about her. Like, I think she's there for an ulterior motive.
Keep
But
reading.
that's just my prediction. So then we're back to Kale and Adian, and they continue to meet secretly. Kale and Adian. I said Kale.
You keep typing Kale and I'm like, I just hope she says that.
Look, okay, so when I'm making notes, when I'm making these chapter notes, I'm making them on my phone, like while I'm at work in my notes folder. And so autocorrect loves to change Kale to Kale.
That's fair.
And everything in here is like misspelled. Um, so that's funny. Anyways,
Murtaugh is my favorite.
what is Murtaugh right here? Yeah.
Murtaw.
Yeah.
Murtaugh.
Murtaugh. So Kale tells Adian about the deal that he has with his dad, that involves Selena. So he sent Selena away basically to protect her. And in that deal, he had to agree to go back to his kingdom. And then we learn that Aylin's mother, Adian's mother, was killed, but he doesn't even know who his father is. They're supposed to meet Ren and Myrtle, but they're followed by 8 men. Ren and Myrtle are, and the men make it to the alley, and then Adian kills all of them. So Myrtle manages to get away. Ren's like, we're being followed, we've been betrayed. And then Adian's like, watch me do this, kills all of them. And then these men are in royal uniforms, but royal uniforms that Kale doesn't recognize. And then we learn that they're searching the slums for Ren and Murtaugh. So that's where that ends.
Yep, lots of things happening there. Chapter 30, Kale, Adian, and Ren take refuge in this opium den to escape.
This was funny.
Then, yeah, this has been fun. They are later joined by Murtaugh, who tells Kale about his theory that a spell sent from 3 triangulated locations caused magic to vanish from Otterlin. If you remember, they were talking about how Adian said that 3 waves of magic hit before magic was gone. Here we have 3 in like a triangle. So this is something to pay attention to in the next couple chapters because it will be explained.
It will? I don't remember.
Yes, it will.
Anyways, Manon tries to feed some lamb raised for the wyverns to Abraxos, but Abraxos is like, I'm not eating this. And then she's like, fine, if you're not going to eat it, I will. And she goes to like take a bite out of it, but realizes that this animal's blood just like tastes bad, that it tastes wrong. And then she's like, fine, okay, you're not going to eat this animal meat that Arlen provides to us. And none of the 13 are going to be eating the food that's provided to us. So they all have to go out now and hunt for fresh goats to eat. That was that. That was an easy chat. Oh no, it's not. Um, that's that. No,
That's that. The
there's
end.
more. Anyways, Manon is done with Abraxas. He's not eating the meat. She says it tastes bad. And then the grandmother orders her now. She's like, you and Abraxos have to fly or you're going to be kicked out. And then Abraxas is like, I don't want to fly. And she ends up jumping on him and tries to make him. And then they end up falling off a cliff.
Yep,
And
then we get into chapter 32, which is kind
yeah.
of a funny one. So Manon and Abraxos are falling off the cliff. Manon finally gets this wyvern to open up his wings, and then they start flying together for the first time. But the funny thing is, she's just like, "Open your damn wings, or we're gonna die!" And
Yeah.
then she finds out that Abraxos's wings are damaged. So, I mean, he was a bait beast, so he was getting beaten up and scratched and clawed and ripped apart. So that's kind of bound to happen. Then, once they land, Manon tells the 13 about her plans for war games.
Then in chapter 33, we're back to Aelin. Aelin, she's training and she just cannot control her fire. Emrys then is telling stories later on in Aelin asks for stories about Maeve, and he says he will start at the very beginning when fairies walked among us. Maeve's sisters potentially lost their immortality after marrying mortals, and Maeve took it from them. So I should say they had immortality, and then Maeve took it from them for marrying mortals. Did I say that right? I think so.
Basically, she wanted to keep the bloodline strong. So
Yeah.
when they kept marrying mortals, the magical bloodline would dwindle, and she just wanted strong heirs.
Yeah. So Maeve's kind of icky. Then Maeve long ago, we learn she loved a warrior, but he died before her and the warrior could marry. And the ring he was supposed to marry her with is missing. What seemed to be a mountain cat then arrives and changes to a man, Gavriel. Gavriel and Rowan leave to go to his room, and you're like, oh, is this a romantic little thing? And then it's not. Aylin's very curious and she goes up to bring food and opens the door, and Rowan, they're like in a really weird situation where like Gabriel is like clothed halfway and Rowan is tattooing him basically. And Rowan is then pissed at her for interrupting. Then Rowan runs after her. He's incredibly rude and really mean to Aelin, and he hits her where it hurts and says that he doesn't care about her at all. And we learned that she had had hope that maybe that they would be friends, and like that hope and that little light inside of her that someone loved her and cared about her is gone again, which was sad.
Yeah. Then we get into chapter 34. Emrys sees this and he goes to Rowan and is like, hey, please, I beg you, be kind to Aelin and help her out because you don't know what she's going through. And it turns out that Emrys actually knows who Aelin is. He knew her mother. And he's like, she looks exactly like her mother. Like, I'm not fooled. So Rowan's just kind of like, okay. Rowan takes Aelin to a cave with a frozen lake. This is kind of a comedic relief episode, or not episode, but like scene for me because it had a lot of banter and like Aelin is just pissed at Rowan, but she wants to save Luca. So Luca is there. He's chained up in the middle of this lake and surrounded by ice. Aelin has to rescue him by using her powers, which is a test of her control because remember, she can't control her fire. So she has to try and save Luca without burning him to death. This is where her concern for Luca really shows that she cares for him and the others at the keep because remember she's just like I don't care for either of you, leave me alone. But she has a big heart and Luca is definitely part of that. She ends up freeing Luca, but then sees this monstrous looking eye in the water. Pretty
Uh-oh.
fun.
Chapter 35, there is this monster under the water, and he starts trying to come out. And Rowan had no idea that there was anything under there. And then the monster starts slamming against the ice. It's beginning to break. Rowan then throws Aelin a sword and that he had pulled out of like the ice as she was unfreezing it, I believe. And this sword has a ruby on the hilt, and there's also a gold ring that she ends up grabbing as well. And her and Luca get away. Aelin then fights with Rowan, telling him not to bring anyone else into their training. And they go into the kitchen, and everyone sees her in her changed form. So she hadn't been Fae in front of any of them before.
Mhm.
And then she walks in and she's Fae, and everyone's like, then Aelin apologizes to them all because she had said like mean and terrible things to them all. So like Emrys and Emrys's partner, she had said really mean things to them, and she ends up owning what she said and apologizing to all of them.
What a big girl.
Um, and then after that, she learns that they all know who she is because her mother spent time there with them. Emrys then tells her a story of the monster that they just managed to get away from, the monster under the mountain. And it's born, he says, from another world. And we learn that there was a Fey warrior who battled it and took one of its eyes. So it only had one eye looking, took its eye and cursed it to live beneath that mountain. Then we learn that the gold ring and sword were the warriors who had fought the monster and cursed it. She
Take a
then,
pause. Go back to chapter, what was it, 33, when a certain warrior died before they married, and the ring he was supposed to marry with is missing.
oh, I kind of thought
Whose
that, but
lover was that?
hmm,
That was Maeve's.
Maeve's, Maeve's warrior.
So this is the missing ring.
Ooh, okay. I bet that's gonna piss Maeve off. We'll see. So then changing scenes, we learn that she then brings ointment to Rowan because she ended up burning him. And he says she has the gift. We learn that she has the gift to heal herself, actually. And she can also heal others a little bit from Maeve's bloodline that she has. So Rowan tells her that he then really starts to feel kind of this sympathy for what he's done and what he's said towards Selena, Aelin, and he starts to open up to her and then tells her that his mate that he had before died, and this large tattoo that covers a large portion of his body tells the story of how his mate died. And then we learn that others go to him to tattoo basically their grief. So he tattoos like a lot of names on people of people, loved ones who've died, or just friends who've died. So then he had been sent to fight in a war. And while he was sent away at this war, the enemy came and actually attacked at his home. And his mate was there, and she was pregnant, and they killed her and her unborn child. So he lost it. He ran away, and then eventually Maeve brought him back to work, and he gave the blood oath to Maeve. And Rowan kind of extends this olive branch to Aelin, and they agree to heal kind of from their trauma together.
This
So
is
it's a
one of the
big,
turning points in their relationship because
I
Rowan
was
is
just about
opening
to say
up
that.
to Aelin. And we learn, again, we knew Rowan was hurt at some point, but we didn't know to what extent. And this is pretty bad.
Really sad. I couldn't imagine.
No.
Be terrible.
All right. 36. Kale and Adian are listening to the stories of soldiers who were called back to Rifthold from their posts. So, one soldier spent 5 years in a place called Null, where the king built a tower and then said men went mad, complained of headaches, and then eventually bashed their own skulls in. Where have we learned that people go crazy and get headaches? This obsidian ring. And also, there's another thing with kind of the same material, maybe the obsidian clock tower. There is
Okay.
another tower built in Amaroth, which completes this triangle with Rifthold's tower.
What? Okay, I need to go back and reread this chapter. I missed this.
Yes, so in Null, there's a tower. In Rifthold, there's a black obsidian tower.
Mm-hmm.
And in Amaroth, there's a tower. This completes this triangle with Rifthold
Whoa.
as like the point. So
Mm-hmm.
whatever the king did to magic, it has something to do with that triangle.
Okay. I'm mind blown right now.
Yep.
We just need to take down the towers.
Well, we'll see. It might be in the next book.
So, 37. Manon and her witches and their wyvern have all stopped eating the food given to them and they hunt their own. Manon takes her wyvern to go hunt, but this time for spider silk. So, if you remember from Assassin's Blade, we learn the story of spider silk,
Hmm.
where
So it's like the strongest substance that you could
Mhm.
possibly have.
Yeah, Selena had gotten it from a merchant and just a little bit of it he gave her, and she sewed it and had it sewn in Sam's um, little suit, his spider suit.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah,
I'd say so.
spider suit. And so we actually hear a little bit about this merchant again. So, anyways, Manon goes and she's hunting for the spider silk because she wants to help strengthen her wyvern Abraxos wings. So then she ends up finding three of these spiders, and we learn that from the spiders that the witches we know want to take back what is called the wasteland that was cursed. And the spiders tell her that some red-haired girl has overthrown the old ruler there.
We
We
just came
know.
off of Assassin's Blade. Who had red hair?
And wanted to take back the wastelands.
Could it be Ansel?
It's definitely Ansel. And then Manon's kind of like, oh, well, she'll be the first person I kill. So we're taking it back and we're going to kill her. Then they say that a merchant ended up telling them this and that he was a shapeshifter and unknowingly passed some of his power to the spider when they gave him spider silk for 20 years of his life. We've also met him. As payment, the spider wants to take Manon's beauty so that the spider can shapeshift and win over a king in the future. Manon then tricks the spiders, and Araxis nails them with his tail, and she ends up stealing a significant amount of spider silk and flying away.
Yeah, this is again where I bring up Assassin's Blade before Heir of Fire because there are so many nods to what is said in Heir of Fire and what is said in Assassin's Blade, like the
Mhm.
merchant, the spider silk, Arabin Hammel's treatment of Selena.
Mhm.
So, if you don't read it third, you got to read it before Heir of Fire, even if you read it before. So, if you read it first, read it before Heir of Fire. It'll just give you a good reminder.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, 38. Abraxos will not make the crossing, which is what is needed to basically train these wyverns so they can be prepared for pretty much anything. Because of this, Iskra whips him. Manon loses her shit, so she attacks Iskra. Petra then comes and says she liked how she defended her wyvern, and she offers Manon like this friendship slash alliance together.
Yeah.
Petra's not too bad.
No, honestly, she kind of comes in and is like, yeah, you're cool. Iskra sucks.
Yeah.
We hate her. Which she does. And if you've read it, then you know that Manon feels super protective over Abraxos,
Mhm.
and she won't let any of the trainers use a whip against him because he's been beaten so bad. And so she kind of understands maybe some PTSD there, and she doesn't want him to be hurt like that again.
Yeah.
So a little
Again,
tender.
she's got emotion, she's got feelings, and she has feelings for others.
Yeah. Then in chapter 39, Aelin is fixing Rowan's tattoos from her burning him. And they're talking about family. And she ends up bringing up her cousin, Adian, and talks about how close they were when they were children. And she thinks that he'd be disappointed in who she's become and what she's done. And she doesn't want to know what all he's done in the North, but she knows he works for the king's army now. And we learn that she does not want to be queen of Terrasen, and she wants to take down the king as Selena Sardothian and not Aelin Galathinius.
Again, she's not taking responsibility for what she needs to do. She
Hmm.
still thinks that she can get away being Selena without taking the crown of
Hmm.
Terrazin.
Yeah.
It's naive thinking.
Yeah.
It's very naive of her to think that she can continue to be Otterland's assassin without people finding out who she is, because
Hmm.
too many people know at this point. The secret's going to get out.
Yeah. Especially with some betrayals that are coming up. So,
Yeah, we'll talk about that one. Okay, chapter 40. Kale and Adian meet up with Ren and Murtaugh. Murtaugh brings news that the king is sending his navy to launch a surprise attack on Wendlin. Oh no!
we're
Who's
like,
in
oh,
Wendlin right now? Aelin. They find there are monsters who look like strange, pale men lurking in the dead islands south of Otterlin. Kale is then pressured by both Dorian and Adian to pick a side in the coming war.
I'm still confused on what side Dorian's on, though. Because,
He's got an identity crisis.
yeah, because I mean, he's like, I don't know. He recognizes that his dad's bad. And then, like, he says this and he was like, I hope you're on the right side, kind of. And I'm like, well, I don't even know what side you're on, Dorian. Like, are
Yeah,
you going to
your
protect your
dad is
evil
doing
dad?
this, but you've got magic, buddy.
Yeah. Then in chapter 41, Aelin, she's still training. She needs a lot of it. And then there's the festival Beltane that is beginning. Aelin starts to feel more angry from being in her Fae form longer. And she's also starting to feel very territorial over Rowan. So, like, their relationship's really growing. And she is supposed to be controlling the bonfires for this festival, which was a task given to her by Rowan. And she's doing it for a really long time. She's tired, she's sweating, but Rowan won't let her stop. And then she starts to kind of like lose herself in the music, and she can't stop her power, and she begins to burn out. Rowan then suffocates her fire inside, like from the inside of her, basically, and she passes out. Rowan then has to run her to water, and she begins to like boil the water. So they're like, put her in this cold tub, and they put her in, and it starts boiling. And they have to keep doing that and trying to freeze the water over and over again to try and cool her off. They then strip her down, and Rowan sees the scars on her back and asks, who did this to you? And she tells him that she was in the salt mines for a year, and he seems to have some real concern for this and for her in this moment. And we learn that he again has burned himself very badly carrying her to the water.
This is the pivotal moment in the relationship between Rowan and Selena. because Rowan does see that, Aelin has been through so much. She has been in Endovir for a year and nobody makes it that long. So he knows what she went through, or I guess he can gain an idea of what she went through. But the biggest thing in their relationship, and how I know by being a fantasy romance girly or an action romance girly, who did this to you is the best line a male character can say to a female character after they've been hurt.
I remember you in this line in the Powerless series. You're
Oh
like,
yeah, my the TikTok I made.
yeah.
Yeah, that was fun.
I
But
thought of you when I heard that when I look because I listened to it. So when I
uh-huh.
heard that, I was like, Alyssa.
Yeah. So immediately when I read that line, I was like, I was kicking my feet like a little schoolgirl, like, yes, it's finally freaking happening. You'll see. You'll see why Rowan's my favorite character.
I like him. You do.
He was a dick at first, but he had his reasons.
Mm-hmm. He's been hurt.
He has been hurt, and so has she, and maybe they can heal together. We'll see.
But they're cousins. So like I don't know that I like a romantic relationship between them.
Distant. I mean,
I
Maeve
thought
isn't really her like blood aunt. I mean, it's like faintly in her blood, but it's not like direct descendant. Like
yeah.
there are so many ancestors in between them
I
because
know.
the
He's
Fae are
like
like
over
hundreds of years old.
yeah, he's like we know Rowan's over 200 years old, but still, I don't
Quite the
know.
age gap.
Yeah. It
It's
feels a
fine.
little icky.
It's fine. Okay. Chapter 42. Aelin and Rowan kind of have this bond now. Rowan is kind of like, okay, you need to sleep with me now,
Yeah.
which is, it's great. It's fun. But
Like
it's just platonic. They're just sleeping. There's no flirtation. There's nothing. And Aelin starts sharing the stories about her past with Rowan. He starts to understand her better and then realizes that Emrys was right about him not knowing what she's been through and that he did treat her unfairly.
hmm. Yeah.
Starting to have this epiphany like, oh, I was wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Rowan's character development. It's happening.
And also, you
And
need to sleep with me from now on. I was like, where did that come from?
yeah, I was like, why? Why does she have to sleep with you? Like, this is weird. But she's like, oh, at least I get a bed now. And I'm like, this is weird. But
It's strange. I'm here for it. As the hopeless romantic redhead, I am here for it.
chapter 43. Rowan is then being really tender and he's helping Aelin heal from her burnout, bringing her food and protecting her because this was like, I don't know that I understood this very well because apparently Fae go like crazy when like another's injured and like may end up just like killing them. Can do you understand that? Maybe it was just a weird little
Um,
insert. I was like, what do you mean? It's
I
like
think he's
pheromones?
he's very protective over her and he's trying to justify it.
Okay. Then we learn about this new term, Karanom, which is when you're drained, your Karanom can yield power to you if you're compatible and sharing a blood connection.
It's like a bond, yeah.
Yeah. So you're bonded together. But you can still only use your power, like Aelin could only use her fire and she couldn't use Rowan's wind if he was compatible with her. And then you
Mhm.
can't tell if you're compatible with someone until you try, and it's actually very rare that you are. And it has to be with someone you trust that you would try this with, or they can end up draining your power. So that was like a weird thing that I learned, but I imagine we'll see it sometime.
I was gonna say Sarah J Maas doesn't do things for shits and giggles.
Yeah. So then some people we learn hunt out others for this Karanom, and they find people that are theirs and then end up keeping them as like their slaves.
This is horrible.
Yeah, I was just very, yeah, grossed out by all of this kind of. I was like, oh, that's crazy. And then finally, they're talking about the salt mines again, and Rowan says that they could have a healer who can heal her scars pretty well. And she says that she is going to free all of the slaves in Andover and Calicola, and that her scars serve as a reminder to the hell that they are all in right now. And then she's asked about what happened to her 10 years ago. And she says that she can't talk about it because there's so much anger that if she does, she'll kind of fall into this and become it. And she'll lose herself in this anger and rage and become uncontrollable. And this is why she says she has to be Selena and not Aelin because there's just so much emotion and trauma with Aelin. Meanwhile, Selena's also been really traumatized too,
There's a
which
lot of
is sad.
trauma in this book.
Yeah. Then it's her birthday. Hello.
180.
Yeah, she has a birthday, and we learn that another demi-fae has been killed. Rowan won't let her see it. Rowan is a little sweetheart and brings her chocolate for her birthday, and she ends up kissing him playfully on the cheek. And they're training, and Rowan wants her to use her fire to start making shapes, and she is to try to make a shield. She makes a shield and actually begins to like hone her power a little bit more, and she's starting to sneak away and starts practicing on her own. So she's
Yeah.
not really scared of herself anymore.
Yeah. There's a lot of character growth in Heir of Fire for Aelin, and it's pretty evident throughout, before she was a shell of a human being, she was getting drunk every single day.
Hmm.
Now she is powerful. She has this confidence that she can do this, but she still has a ways to go because she still doesn't want to be the princess of Terrasen.
Hmm.
Chapter 44. Here we're back with Manon and Abraxos. So if you remember, Abraxos would not cross or do the crossing, and Manon has had it with his behavior. And she finally gets him through the crossing, and it only took a threat from her grandmother, who was like, "If you do not get through the crossing, I will kick you out."
I think she says that she'll like kill her.
Yeah,
She's like, you're
yeah.
gonna die.
She'll
Kick out.
I
You're gonna
I
die.
think it was she'll kick her out and she'll kill Abraxos or something like that. Or
Yeah.
she'll kill the 13.
Well, yeah, she was like, you're either gonna cross it or you're going to die trying.
Yes. Yep.
So, so it was like, good luck.
Yeah.
And no one's gonna be there as a safety net to catch you.
A
So
great motherly figure.
she's so sweet. In chapter 45, Rowan discovers that Aylin's been sneaking away and training herself, and that she's actually becoming very good. Um, Once again, we also know that Aylin has a little bit of water power that she does not train. She's tried, but she can't maneuver it. And we learn that she still dreams of Chaol sometimes, and it really hurts her. They find another dead demi-fae. This one seems a bit different, and Aelin suggests that there's more likely, there's more likely more than one roaming the territory there. Then this corpse, it looks like, seems to have fought back, unlike the others. And then under the nails, Selena Aelin ends up pulling out this black blood-like substance, and it's similar to that of the creature that she found in the dungeon at the castle in Otterland. So if you remember, she ended up fighting underneath the library, this crazy creature, not the one that, what's his name? The crazy guy.
Not the one Archer wanted her to summon from the portal after Nehemia talked with her.
Correct.
This was the one where we kind of got its point of view where it was like, "Oh, food. I haven't had food in a
Yeah, like
years or something. You know, it was like kind of, I don't know, disfigured thoughts of this creature
yeah.
finally thinking
Yeah.
like a human.
So it was very similar to that one. And then she tells Rowan all about this creature, the word keys, and that Maeve knows how to destroy them. And that's why she wants to talk to her. And then they start going hunting for this creature. And they don't find anything yet. And while they're hunting, she's still thinking about Chaol and how she never had that kind of mating bond feeling with him. And it was like, would you try to kill your mate? Because I tried to kill him, and I don't think that you would try to kill someone that you've mated with. And Rowan says sometimes it doesn't click immediately, and that she hasn't really been Fae long enough to, I think he's
Mhm.
trying to make her feel better.
Yeah. Yeah, the mating bond in any book has its own rules, but we'll see. Chapter 46. Rowan and Aelin find a host of Otterlin soldiers while they're hunting for this creature. And these soldiers are led by General Narok and three of the creatures that they are hunting. Then they realize, oh shit, they're about to attack Mistward. So then they decide to take matters into their own hands and try to kill one of the creatures. And that is the end of chapter 46 and the end of part 2. So we have a
Yes.
lot of stuff that was revealed here. We've got the king did something to magic with that triangle of clock towers 10 years ago
Hmm.
to kill magic. And Aelin and Rowan are finally bonding. They're finally at least friends here. We're
Hmm.
finally getting somewhere where they don't hate each other. They're not trying to kill each other. Adian and Kael are trying to figure out what is going on. And we've got this army heading towards Mistward, which is full of people that Aelin now cares about. So what is she going to do to protect them? We'll find out in part 3. If you
Yay.
guys have any thoughts, feelings, emotions, let us know on social media, Main Character Syndrome Pod. For now, to the readers who listen, we'll see you later.
Bye, everyone.